Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. I'm Sue, and you've just stepped into Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. Every week, I'll introduce you to a friend of mine, a remarkable entrepreneur who's not just changing the world, but also harnessing a secret weapon, time outdoors. Together, we'll dive into their journey, unpack invaluable business advice, and discover why embracing the wild is not just good for the soul, but also a goldmine for inspiration and innovation. Ready to uncover the secret that's boosting bottom lines and fueling joy? Hit subscribe and join us in the wild. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited to introduce Jesse Korby. He's the co-founder of Jeweler's Advantage. He's a pioneer in the luxury and jewelry industry. Jesse's revolutionizing jewelry retail by integrating AI into traditional practices. His company offers free AI tools and a transformation program called Excalibur. I love that. He's helping jewelers develop unique brands and adapt to the future of e-commerce and lab-grown diamonds. What sets Jesse apart is his focus on nurturing business owners' relationship with AI, because it can be a little scary at first. So he's viewing it as a strategy amplifier rather than a replacement for creativity. So don't worry, but get ready to meet an entrepreneur who's actively shaping the future of jewelry retail. Jesse, welcome to Entrepreneurs Gone Wild.
Thank you for having me, Sue.
I am so glad you're here. This is going to be so cool. So we've already talked about, Jesse and I have one thing in common already. We will go out in the woods or out somewhere outside and just talk to ourselves and look like crazy people. But this is how we get good ideas. And we're totally talking about that. But first, Jesse, talk a little bit about the people that you serve and the problem that you solve for them.
Yeah. So I guess you could say our customer avatar, that's if we're getting into entrepreneurial terms, is the retail jeweler. So it could be anyone from somebody just out of jewelry school, they learned all their bench skills and they're now starting to figure out how they're going to sell custom jewelry. Maybe it's the private jeweler that used to be a salesperson that said, hey, wait a second, like I know who to just hire to make this engagement ring and I can sell it to somebody on social media, and that's a whole business that people start. Or it could be a family store. There's a jewelry store in every town in America, basically, right? You could, it's kind of like the dentist. So, so that's
way more fun though.
Yeah, it's prettier than the dentist's office, right? So it could be people like that are trying to figure out what to do in this world where somebody could also enter the industry that isn't previously in the jewelry industry, but they have a Shopify store and now they're selling to that customer from 1,000 miles away, and the mom and pop shop looks kind of quiet. As a result, they don't know that someone stole their customer, basically. So it's anybody right now that is looking to get comfortable and get the new strategy for what's going to be required in the jewelry industry moving forward. Because I guess you could say the big marketing message from De Beers, "A diamond is forever," was what defined like the entire industry. It built in the perception of the product being a valuable product, if we're talking about a diamond ring or diamond earrings or what have you, and everybody got to benefit from that for a really long time. But because of lab diamonds coming out and then e-commerce being a big disruption, and then now artificial intelligence making it so that maybe a disrupted field like an attorney might decide to become an e-commerce jeweler. It's changed everything. So basically, I help anybody who is trying to get into retail jewelry and build a brand, and maybe you want to be the next Cartier, and AI can now help you do that, even if you aren't a multi-generation jeweler.
This is incredible. I love this when, for a long time, it was like, if you wanted to write a book, you better get a publisher. They got to want you. You had to have like permission to go write a book and get it published. Same thing with music, same thing with movies and all that. And it's happened in so many. And jewelry, I never had even thought about it in that. But now it's like, it's open to pretty much anybody anywhere who has that passion for creating jewelry and wanting to sell it. This is so cool. All right. So how did you get into this?
How did that happen? Right. Yeah. Cause that's kind of off the wall. Like to think, okay, well, we're going to do artificial intelligence and fine jewelry. Like what made that the idea? Right.
Yeah. That's a wild mashup.
So first of all, I never, ever would have thought I would have been like a tech bro. But
how about that?
I kind of fit the bill now. So the way that it happened was I wasn't even super technologically inclined for a really long time. I went to college for classical music.
Oh,
And
that's a
yeah,
switch.
yeah. So in terms of like understanding the arts and creativity, that was always like really inherent to what I do and like in the fabric of who I am, right?
Yeah.
So like going to art galleries when I was a kid. My mom used to take us to down to DC. I live in the DC area, and we would go down there, and we were always like encouraged to participate in the arts, right? So I went to Florida State for classical music. I was basically singing opera and then playing in bands and learning to do like electric guitar and stuff. And that laid the foundation for me to start understanding like being creative and having it turned into an electrical signal, which is like the core foundation of doing something with tech, right?
Yeah.
It has to become electricity at some point. And that was like the very basic bare bones. Like I wasn't good with computers. I wasn't really even interested in engineering for a long time. And then through getting into a band, and then I lived in Nashville right out of college, just started working with the movers and shakers in the music industry in Nashville, and like really fell in love with the recording process. And in that world, that's all about like electrical signal and manipulating the audio signal. And then eventually, if you want to record, you have to get good on a computer. So that was kind of the catalyst. And then I ended up partnering with my producer buddy in Nashville, this guy named Malcolm Springer, that kind of that worked closely with me as I was really learning the audio production thing. And that was my first exposure to AI with photo editing. So
Wow.
like I was doing AI for images, I guess you could say, without even really realizing that like that was something to be on the cutting edge of. I just thought I had fun apps to play with. And it was like 2016. That's definitely the year. It was definitely 2016. We were we were learning in the recording studio, and I would be taking pictures and then editing them with it happened to be an AI image editor that it basically had onboard AI that started that. So then that basically laid the groundwork for what we do now, which is an AI tool for the jewelry industry that does have, maybe you could say about 20% of it is around design, where it's actually creating AI images for jewelry, and then we're there to build other businesses, or like I guess other aspects of the business, you could say.
Right. That is
AI.
fascinating. So it was like your first AI was kind of the starter, the gateway drug, right?
Yeah.
And this is all right. This is incredible. So it's got to be that this is just completely disrupting the jewelry industry. Like, how has that experience been? You guys launched this thing. What kind of reception are you getting from these jewelers? Is it different depending on like who? I want to hear everything.
Yeah, it was polarizing. So I guess to bridge the gap into how that happened, like, okay, so I'm in Nashville doing the studio thing, and then I ended up working with a big celebrity jeweler on 47th at a company. This guy is named Max Agajani. I mix it up because I know him as Max, but like the world calls him Trax, and that's the name of the company and stuff like that. But worked with this guy named Max at Trax on 47th during COVID, and then basically that led to a transition into me becoming a consultant in the industry for e-commerce. But like it was a big transition during COVID, and that was really eye-opening because not many people, even by 2020, had really cracked the code on e-commerce for a jewelry business. It's hard to do because you're not selling t-shirts. You're not
right. It's a whole different thing. This is higher ticket, I mean,
higher ticket, higher pricing. I guess we could come back to the idea that you've got gold in there. There's some things in there that are regulatory or not, and then there's things in there that are complicated because like you have to be able to repair jewelry, whereas if a t-shirt gets messed up, the ink on a print-on-demand shirt gets messed up for some reason, you can just send it back. But this is like, okay, well now we have to worry about repairs, we have to worry about the reputation if they take it to another jeweler. That kind of stuff gets complicated. So what we ended up doing, my business partner Richard and I ended up starting out doing consulting, where we were basically addressing the needs of whoever we could get at a given time. And we would do things like a lot of like customs funnels, or we'd figure out things with operations, or we'd figure out things with like pricing and branding and everything like that. And that ended up culminating in what we're doing now. It was about a year ago that we dropped an AI tool into the various communities of the jewelry industry, and it was polarizing. So it started.
What happened?
Yeah. We basically put out a proprietary AI tool that was the combination of everything that we did as consultants that also had a designer built into it. So like, it was really polarizing about a year ago because we were, if not the first, like I think some people were basically trying to keep the AI thing a secret behind the scenes, that they were using it for design, and then they would make it and post the piece, and it's like, oh wow, like we really leveled up and nobody knew. Like I knew that was going on because I was using the tools, but I was also in a position to be like, let's show people how to do this. That's what we should be doing. So there were some people that loved it. We started going viral on Facebook with some stuff. And then, not to name any names, but there was some gatekeeping in some of the bigger, more established parts of the industry where it was like, I went from like full faucet on into my DMs of people wanting the tool, and we're giving it away for free, and it's still free. But it went from like full faucet, hundreds of people, and then all of a sudden it was done like capped. And then we've had enough people that we were doing things before that, and then we brought in people to start testing the AI and building other products around that. So there's a whole, I guess, what do you want to know about the drama?
that is, I can imagine. Like, so the first indication was all of a sudden your DMs are dried up, right?
Yeah.
How did you find out? Like, I mean, maybe that's nosy, but how'd you find out? Like, what the heck was going on? Like, usually people are just like, what broke? I don't know.
It was that was like I was in a group, and then all of a sudden I wasn't allowed in the group anymore.
Well, that's a pretty clear indicator.
Yeah. So there was a rumor going around in the industry that because we kind of came in hot, because it was just like there, in the tech world or in entrepreneurship in general, when you see an opportunity that, hey, there's something available and now we have to go first with this. It was, for us, it was in chat, like everybody knows about ChatGPT if you've heard about AI. And it was, we saw an opportunity when they dropped the GPT store, where it was like you could create your own custom AI model, basically. And that was some stuff that we were talking about. And I guess because it was so new and unknown to a lot of people, they like, they're not everybody, because like there's now our community is up to just shy of 1,500, and like there's good engagement and people are wanting to know about it, but it's like they're early adopters. The people that aren't early adopters are going to immediately say stuff like, that's snake oil, that's this or that, you're a scammer. And it's like, okay, well, like, allow me to at least explain what it is before we make that jump,
Oh man, you're helping the robots to take over.
Yeah.
All right, so this is so cool. I want to dive a little bit further in. So people are coming in there, they can use your AI for free. What happens next? Like, how do they end up working, getting the full juice of what you can do for them?
Yeah. So I guess the thing to start with is like, why would they want to use AI for a jewelry business, right? It's one thing for us to say, hey, cool. It like every business is saying now with AI, like that is going to be, that's the new pets.com type thing from like 1999, right? It's like, it's got AI in it now. So it's like, to answer that question, you have to, I guess this is where it ties into the crazy ideas outside. You have to understand what the relationship is going to be between the human using it and what the AI is supposed to actually be and what it's supposed to actually do and why it exists, right? Yeah. So for me, a big part of my creative process is I've been doing transcendental meditation for a number of years. So that, for anybody who has experience with it, it does make you operate differently. It makes you think differently. It opens up kind of other aspects of how you experience reality is the easiest way of describing it. And if you don't have experience with it, it's kind of impossible for me to describe, right?
That's true.
So that's a big part of my process in working on the tools. And to me, that is kind of the core fundamental. It's that the relationship between the human using the AI and what they're trying to do with it. And like whether we're talking about the jewelry industry or whatever other industry would be revolutionized by this magical technology, that's kind of square one. It's what is the relationship and how is this amplifying you? Because it's like AI is not going to take our jobs. It's going to be the human that understands that principle, that it's the relationship and the amplification of their skills with the tool that are going to take, that I don't want to say that are going to take people's jobs. I would rather frame it as that are going to disrupt the market, and it's up to the humans to adapt to what the world demands, right? So that's kind of the core thing to keep in mind. That's really important. When you do understand that principle, then it's like, hey, well then within my imagination, I am the company. Like I am an organization. If I understand what an organization is supposed to be, and then in the confines of your own imagination, then you can amplify that, right? So I guess to simplify way down and not boil the ocean, because I could go on for hours about like the various kind of things that our tool does, but it's essentially like you're like the CEO and creative director of an LVMH brand. Like you're at Louis Vuitton, you're at, sorry, my mind is slipping, Hermès, you're at any other kind of fine jewelry, luxury outfit. I mean, LVMH or Kering, any company owned by them. You can think like, okay, well, maybe I don't have the skill set to be Bernard Arnault, but AI can help me with that. It can fill in the gaps of some of the things I don't know on the business side. Maybe if you think of like I don't know if you're familiar with the brand Schiaparelli. It's like I've
heard of that. Yeah.
It's actually a really well tenured traditional kind of like fashion house that was recently taken over, I guess, in the last few years by a creative director named Daniel Roseberry, who's very, very good. You can go follow his content on social media. I've taken some inspiration from seeing like, wow, that's the highest level of that skill, being the creative director. Or maybe more people have heard of Tom Ford, who's very well known. So it's the idea that it'd be like, okay, if I had those people in the room, if I could ask Bernard Arnault about the business strategy of a luxury business, and especially applied to jewelry, or if I could ask Tom Ford or Daniel Roseberry about how can we approach the creative vision of this brand and create a whole collection, and what are the products going to look like, and what are the models going to be dressed in, what is the overall creative concept of this. You can actually think at that level and go kind of create a world. And then of course you can get into the nitty gritty of like, well, how much should this piece cost and why, and how are we going to make it and stuff, and like the more technical stuff. But
that
it really
amazing.
Is that. Sorry, I don't mean to ramble. It's like,
no. I'm like, this is blowing my mind, because it's basically like you now have this board of advisors, this extreme, like you said, they are the highest expression of what it means to succeed in this. They've devoted their lives to this. You probably, for most people, they couldn't afford to hire them. Bernard is a tad expensive, I mean, these guys are, but to be able to have their input in a sense, virtually like this, like from what your AI has gathered from them. That's incredible. So they can get kind of business strategies, design ideas, the marketing ideas. This is all right. That is amazing. I can see the value to them. How do they work with you more then? What happens next? So that, I mean, if you're giving this away as the free AI, how are you, you got to eat too.
Yeah. Well, so the big thing is it's like, it's easy to explain it, but then once you're sitting there and you have to make the decisions of, okay, well, what kind of brand is this going to be? Like, you've kind of showed me that you can do anything. That we have a lot of free video on YouTube, and we have like playlists and stuff to get people up to speed, because the education side of this is like, this is a whole new paradigm. This is an entirely new way to think of yourself as a business owner and an executive of a company, because it also requires a little bit of humility to surrender, like, hey, my ideas and my thinking, there could always be something greater than me now. And then it starts becoming like a dance of validating, like, okay, well, do I let this thing do all of my thinking for me, or do I make sure that I'm kind of guiding where this is going, and I can just go further faster now, but I have to ultimately make the decisions. And that's what we know to be true. Like, because otherwise it doesn't mean anything if the human hasn't decided. So we have education programs and things like that. We have a flagship program called Excalibur that is intended to train somebody with the tool that we've made available for free, so you can go play with it and get started and just be like, what is this brand prism? What is a design philosophy for a product? How is that going to create 30 days of marketing in just a few minutes? And like, well, what do I do with that then? Then it comes down to, okay, well, you might need a little bit of guidance on this is how you're actually engineering what the brand is going to become. And you might want to be aware that there's going to be some second or third order consequences too if you make this decision here, just so you know. That means that you can't be everything to everybody, and now you can't do this thing because you made this decision, but now you can be this thing, whatever that is. That's what makes a company what it is. Like, Nike isn't selling tuxedos, right? So you have to decide who you're going to be and who you're also not going to be. And then you also have to be aware of, well, that means that I'm going to have this type of customer. If I'm selling high-end products, that means I need to be positioning this entire business, from the creative content to the unit economics and pricing and manufacturing and supply chain of the product, to speak to and align with the values of a sophisticated buyer. Or maybe I'm thinking, well, that's not really what I want to do. There's only so many sales I can make there. Maybe I want to sell to more mass market, but that would also mean certain things. So that's where we come in. We help people figure out how they can actually build their own AI for their brand that works with the more technical side of ours, and then helps them figure out things like, okay, well, if I am going to build a collection, what does that mean? It's not just putting up pictures on a website. There's all kinds of operational stuff that you have to figure out for that. There's how am I going to market this brand and put together enough content and then schedule it? And then how am I also going to figure out how to get the e-commerce store launched with all of the little nuances that go with selling jewelry on the internet rather than a t-shirt. So like, there's a lot of things when it comes to people's store policy, or making sure that they can actually work with the developer or work with the marketing agency, because those people are good at what they do, but they are not aware of the unique kind of sticking points for doing gold and diamonds online. That's the kind of stuff where, because of my experience and my business partner Rich's corporate experience, we can give people the defined new industry best practice that is future-proofed, and kind of including AI, so that way they can have a smaller, cost-effective team where everybody has superpowers. Basically, is the plan.
That's huge. Wow, that's amazing. What kind of feedback are you getting from people that you've already served? Oops.
It's going to be across the board. It is. I don't know if my internet. I don't know if you lost me just now.
No, that was me. You're good.
Are we still good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, cool. The feedback, like any kind of consulting offer, it's generally what people put. If they put in the effort, they're going to get something out of it. So it is that we do have a good spread. I had a professor in school teach us that the best kind of courses, they need a failure rate of some kind, and it needs to be that there's the success rate and then there's a certain failure rate. So we have had people that, like, I guess I can get into, it's interesting, the avatars in my industry that like don't take to it super well, as opposed to the ones that have done really well with it. So like, it's really interesting feedback for an industry newcomer. Like, we have a client that just that came from the legal field. That this was an attorney that was able to put together e-commerce jewelry store in under 60 at the door and get that going. Whereas maybe a more traditional family jeweler might have trouble adapting to kind of new ways of thinking because they've been brought up in like the marketing message of this is about meaningful moments and personal milestones and like the stuff that just like all of the family jewelers say. Whereas somebody entering that has no preconceived idea of what they're supposed to do they'll be looking to their favorite brands and be like, well, what do I want to say? What kind of stories do I want to tell? And they don't necessarily have like ingrained beliefs of like how they're supposed to communicate to the customer.
Nice.
So
there's something to be said about that big beginner's mind in a sense, and that helps us to, be a lot more open to learning something brand new as if we don't already know it,
Yeah.
That's huge. All right. Now, since it is Entrepreneurs Gone Wild and we have this thing in common of talking to ourselves outdoors, tell us like, what are your favorite ways to spend time outside and what kind of ideas come to you while you're out there?
Yeah. Okay. This is a good one. I don't know if you must be familiar with I guess he's the Stanford head of neuroscience, Andrew Huberman, who is like really popular on YouTube and stuff like that. I saw a video from him at one point that forward motion for like, I guess just the way our neurobiology works is that forward motion is really good for humans for reducing stress and like problem solving because it's kind of built into the survival mechanisms of our brain. So I used to get really, really stressed and like every entrepreneur does. And I guess I still do, but the walking helps. So I just started making a habit of being like, if I really have to go work something out, sometimes it's useful just to go really, really deep on the screen time for like 30 or 45 minutes and then get away from it. And then go walking, right? Go walking in nature, smell the trees, just kind of feel the energy of the surroundings. Funny enough that like, between the meditation and then going and doing that, one idea that stands out to me of something that I remember this coming together on a walk was being like, why don't I just make the mental model of a CEO and make that an AI tool that's like more internal of like, what could I be doing to start planning out my content? What could be something that would help with just like the overall strategy? What is the problem of the day that I'm actually trying to solve? And like, of course, going on a walk tends to kind of work that out. You'll get the clarity of like, oh, I would have never had that idea. It just kind of happened, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the coming up with an AI CEO model that is just kind of like a private little secret weapon. That idea came together on a longer walk, and then it started also being a good tool to use before the long walk, because then you could kind of consolidate down like 3 or 4 hours of meetings into like, oh, okay, this is like the really developed idea now, and now I'll go get some sunshine in my eyes and work it out. So yeah, that was a big one. I mean, super cool. Almost everything though, almost every problem I have to solve gets solved outside.
Yeah, that's an incredible thing. I love how you did that. And it's like, you can, how you can use the AI for before, you can use it after, it'll give you ideas to go percolate on outside while you're out there. And I'm just so struck by, all right, so your background was music, you're using AI. Those are kind of different, that's more like engineering brain. This is more music brain. And then the nature thing, it's like both sides of your brain are really like lit, and that's so cool. Does that feel satisfying in your, just brain wise? Does that feel pretty good to have like different trains going like that?
Yeah, I think it, being able to jump from the right side to the left side, like the creative side and analytical side, or put them together. The things that I tend to enjoy working on the most are oftentimes an art and a science. And I think there's a lot of stuff like that. When there is sort of a technical component to like, well, here are the nuts and bolts of how this thing works, but it needs a little magic. There needs to be some kind of sublime aspect to it that makes it special. That I think that probably comes down to the meditation thing. And then I don't know if you've experimented with binaural beats at all.
That's cool.
For anyone that's not familiar with that, it means that you can listen to this audio signal that has one frequency in the right ear and one frequency in the left ear. And this is actually the first thing I was thinking when you're talking about like both hemispheres of the brain. It acts as a pacemaker. So you can like, something I will do sometimes, I'll probably do it later today, is when I go for a walk, I actually put those on with headphones. And I might put on what they call the theta range, because it's the range that that shamans live in, or other monks or people that meditate and stuff like that. And it's like, that's another way to like kind of tune into the radio frequency of like where certain types of ideas happen. And then when you combine that or stack that with, well, now I'm outside in nature and it's beautiful and the sun is shining and the birds are singing and I've got this weird little low hum in my ears, but like I feel different. It's fun to experiment with that kind of stuff. It sounds trippy, but
it does. It sounds like the perfect concoction of like all the inputs and the forward motion and woo, I'm gonna have to try that. I've usually go out with no anything on as far as, in my ears or anything and going, but that I would experiment with that because that sounds really interesting, man.
I highly recommend it. In fact,
that's so cool. That's so cool. Did you guys catch this? Like, are you gonna try it too? Because I'm totally gonna try it.
Yeah.
Man, all right. So Jesse, where can people find out more about working with you?
Cool. Yeah. So we're at jewelersadvantage.com. So it sounds like a nice classic American jewelry related business, right?
It does.
So it's easy to remember. You want an advantage in your jewelry business, go to jewelersadvantage.com. There's a red button that you would follow to try out our AI. We would send you at this time, 4 different AIs. Maybe there'll be 5 later on. But there's different tools that we have that are built into ChatGPT. So if you've gotten on that train, we wanted to make this really accessible. It was important for us to put something out that was easy to get, that we could then learn from you. So if you're the person that's like, hey, I'm not in the jewelry industry, but this sounds cool, you can go try out the tool at jewelersadvantage.com. You get the AI, and then you can find us on Facebook, send me a DM or something like that. And that's how you would get started. And then of course, you can talk to us to get involved in the Excalibur program. We were just doing our test group that just finished up. So it was like, now we've got it like, we're dialed in like a Formula One racing pit crew at this point of like, okay, I see exactly where, even with AI, that kind of idea of like, well, how am I gonna actually do this? How am I gonna actually start designing jewelry? And like, how is that gonna actually become a business? That's something that we're going to be opening up very soon. It's like the next project right now to make it a little bit more streamlined, that you could just come join the community and stuff like that. But for right now, you would just find me, Jesse Korby, on Facebook, or my business partner, Richard McCarthy. You can find us, and then just ask us about Excalibur. We're not trying to keep it a secret. So yeah, that'd be jewelersadvantage.com.
jewelersadvantage.com. I love that. That is such an old school name. It's such a newfangled technology and great opportunities opening up for really anybody who's got this passion. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate this one is usually it's like coaches. I have, I've got certain people that I interview that all the time, and I get that. And I love it when there's like something completely different. Like, I'm like, wait, this is in the jewelry business. How about that? So this is definitely like what a lot of people would be familiar with a coach or a consultant. So like that kind of idea of like, hey, you're getting some help and you're working within a system to actually build a business. So what we've discovered is that we've underpinned this with AI, that process of working with a consultant and working within a set plan. But kind of the next evolution of that is involving how is that going to work with an AI tool. So that's it's been applied to the jewelry industry in this case. It is brilliant, like mind-blowingly brilliant. Because you could do this with any industry, like pretty much, right?
That's the plan.
This is so cool. That is
first things first, like the idea here is to, especially with like that AI CEO idea and lots of different use cases. And I guess something that does make sense if you're not in the jewelry industry, something to try to kind of track this back to everybody is like, I philosophically, I kind of feel like almost every type of business is coded into jewelry in some way. That's kind of more of an abstract way of thinking about it, that it's just like, we've got gold here and we've got gemstones, and just the natural process of human beings to exchange with one another. That like ancient aspect of it is coded in to the tradition of the industry, but that's in pharmaceuticals, that's in selling cars, that's in selling coaching or consulting, that kind of ingrained ancient aspect of like, we figured out how to communicate value to each other through this process, right? So like, absolutely, like we're here to win in the jewelry industry, and we're very competitive, and we're here to be number one at what we do, and we're the only ones doing what we do. But then of course it's not something that we're blind to, that a lot of it would transfer to kind of the future of corporate leadership in general.
Yeah, fascinating. That is so freaking cool. Really, really awesome.
Yeah. So thank you
awesome.
for having me. That's I could go on and on. This stuff is mind blowing that
really is.
that we're here at this time where it's like really created an opportunity for everybody to, with the right attitude, you can either be like, AI is going to take all of our jobs and be the end of the world, or it can be, hey, this is my opportunity to really go create the thing I always wanted to create.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Guys, check it out. jewelersadvantage.com.
Yes.
That was so cool. I'm mind blowing. I'm like, oh my gosh, you could do this. Like, it's a good thing you're a young guy, because there's so many industries you could do this in and never stop, right? Oh man.
No doubt.
Was that fun? Did you?
Oh yeah, that was cool. Yeah, thank you so much. I saw that we're still recording, right? So like, I guess you would just cut this. So.
Yeah, that part gets cut. Yeah, so we're good.
Cool.
Man, that's awesome. All right, that's so cool. All right, so I'm like, whoa, my brain is already going, wow, So it sounds like the biggest thing you're running into, and I've known that a lot of people that are, if there's a SaaS component or whatever, an AI component, and they're giving away a free trial, or here's this free software, or here's this free AI. Some of it is the challenge of people are like, yeah, cool. And then they get in and they're stuck, right? They don't know how to do it. They can't figure it out. There's the videos. Yeah. But that education of, okay, yes, you've got these tools and you're going to do even better, like in Excalibur, right? How are you mushing them over? How are they getting into that, from
what's the sales process for basically,
right? Yeah. How are you doing that?
So, I guess right now we're just we've already finished the test group that we just did. So the way that we see it right now is like, we want a little bit more feedback, because it is like it's a new way of thinking about how to do this, right? So right now we're doing a lot of one-to-one selling, and I don't know if you're familiar with the term customer development, but that's kind of an entrepreneurial buzzword of like, you let them tell you what your offer is supposed to be and what they kind of want out of it and what they don't want. And then there's other things where we have learned with a kind of small contained group of like, where do people go wrong? You can break things by scaling too quick, right? Yeah. And especially with something like this that is new, that we have enough of kind of a pattern established within the framework that we can be like, let's get these kind of avatars in. We've got a wholesaler, we've got an attorney, we've got a husband and wife team with somebody that's not in the jewelry industry, but somebody that is. We actually have two of those. And then we had a family store that just kind of like abandoned the process. But that has to happen too.
That's good to see then too, because then you know who you're best going to serve and who you maybe don't want to.
Well, yeah, but it's interesting because the most established players in the industry are those folks, but they're the ones also kind of like, they're siloed in messaging. Like, people are going to wake up and decide they want to start spending a real amount of money on a diamond if they're going to give it as a gift for engagement. And it's like, guys, that would be the first time in human history that customers decided to pay more for something.
When does that ever happen? Right.
Yeah. So like, what's tricky is that it's like we're seeing the disruption coming in terms of like, there will be people that refuse the new way. And when you do that in business, you're not in business. So
Sure.
So yeah,
And that's
so
a selling point too for your program, because you can go, guys, we see this coming. You're looking for an opportunity to get in, right? And now you
yeah,
have it, because those guys are not gonna, it's like when the internet first came on and all the businesses are like, we don't need no stinking website. It's like, oh,
yeah,
you know, that's
yeah.
huge.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So basically, if you're familiar with like technology adoption curves, they're just
Hmm.
bell curves
Yeah.
that are segmented into four. And it's like you have the early adopters at the beginning of the bell curve, then you kind of have like the mainstream adopters that are like, hey, I guess if it was like Facebook at Harvard as the early adopters, Facebook at Ivy League into all college kids was what that
Hmm.
was. Then it was everybody, and then it was grandma.
Yeah.
You know, um, it's kind of like we're like, because of where it is right now, we're so early. It's like we're definitely getting the early adopters the most, where it's like everything's on fire. I will do anything for this to save my business, and I'll try
Yeah.
anything. And then they're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is awesome. And then basically we're now building our way for the more mainstream people to be ready, because they need the testimonials from the first group to trust it, you know.
For sure. So that first cohort is done then. Are you able to, like, do you have a way to mine those case studies and turn out, like, create that into being something that actually sells for you?
Oh, like through a funnel and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of what we're working on now. So it's like
Nice.
that's the funnelization, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
funnelization or and product, like it's already productized. Like we have the course material, we have all the assets organized, people have gone through the track, and like we're doing
Yeah.
one-on-ones to get the feedback and stuff like that. And then the very next thing, we're doing a few one-to-ones now to just get them in, and like we want to see a couple more people go down the road.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're putting off doing a funnel way after that. That's happening too. It's just kind of, we wanted to make sure that we had solved onboarding before we start scaling funnel, because
Yeah. Smart. Very smart. Otherwise, you got a big puddle on the floor, right?
yeah, otherwise you're solving onboarding at scale, and it's a night, like you can't do that.
No,
So
that does not sound fun.
nah,
So what is
you
the onboarding looking like for you? Like, are they, do you just have like what, yeah, I don't even know. What would your onboarding look like?
well, I guess it's just getting them into the e-learning platform. We're using School right now, so
Mhm.
it's like that might be subject to change, and is likely subject to change. So
Mhm.
it's, when you're using that third party thing, it's like eventually it would be app.jewelersadvantage.com, and then you're routing them over to something, and then
Yeah.
they get an automated email where they create a password and stuff like that. Like,
Right.
I know how the systems go, but you just don't, you don't solve that when it's like you don't have the funnel up with ads going, and
Exactly.
you haven't tested your VSL, and
Yeah.
like we've uh I guess you could say we're faithful disciples of .com secrets,
Gotcha.
right? So in terms of just like a lot of the way the marketing would have to go, you don't need to reinvent the wheel as a coach or a consultant or an
Correct.
educator. It's just you kind of fit to what they're doing, and then also understand that like there are key things in the messaging where it's like, all right, well, we'll get you we got these AI tools that we get you, and this is a new, you know, it reminds me of, have you seen The Founder with Michael Keaton as Ray Kroc from
Yeah. Yeah.
McDonald's?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You know, when he first goes to the McDonald's, and like the guy's like kind of educating him, like, you just sit at the bench over there and you eat the burger,
Yeah.
and then you throw it in the trash, like that kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
kind of that we're solving a bit of stuff that reminds me of that, where it's like, yeah, it's a coaching program, but you have an AI that helps you like do the program. Like that kind
Yeah.
of stuff is coming together. So it's like a couple moving parts. We get how to market it and sell it, but it's just the marketing
Yeah.
and selling it.
Oh yeah. No, that's fantastic. So yeah, I'm imagining you come in, you've got a series of nurture emails. Like, is there, as they're using the free one, are you constantly like,
Yeah.
talking to them about Excalibur and that
Yeah,
kind of thing?
that kind of stuff is starting to land, of
Mhm.
really, of even being able to figure out like what the major outputs of each section and module were going to be, because like
Mhm.
everybody's done a coaching program or an e-learning course that you're like, I don't, you just do it, and then you might not even really realize that you were supposed to be like doing things.
Yeah.
You need to have like, there needs to be some kind of tangible aspect of the transformation that has to happen in benchmarks, rather than being like, all right, do the whole course and then you'll do all this work at the end. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of them do it. And
Yeah.
we built it so that it would be like you're kind of assembling pieces of it that all funnel into the goal at the end of having an e-com store, and like solving that
That's great.
for the first time. And yeah, so like that kind of stuff we had to get defined before we could start kind of really explaining to people how it goes, because we had done a bunch of one-to-one, and then it was a matter of like, how do we take that experience of like kind of building stuff and then turning it into like, well, you're building it, but it's okay because it's really easy if you just know the prompts and you know what decisions you're making. The AI makes it a lot easier. And then, then it's a matter of, once you have that clarity of like what the transformation actually is, what the problems that are to be actually solved, you've seen somebody do it and you know it works. That's like the
huge
biggest holy grail moment that takes years.
Yeah.
Then you can start being more effective with marketing it.
That is so cool. That is amazing. And then how much is the Excalibur program?
Pricing, we're kind of all over the map. Yeah, it's I mean, it is in the thousands of dollars. It could be, right now we're in the $5,000 to $7,000 range.
That's a good place for starting, and testing and all that. And then as you got more of those testimonials, and that could go way up from there. But that's really amazing.
Either that or down, because we've also we've segmented the program into a way that it would be like, okay, you're going to build the brand in microcosm across product design, marketing, sales and service, production operations, and finance. So like those pillars those are all fundamental when they're small, and then they are still fundamental when they're bigger and bigger, but they just have different needs.
Yeah.
So so the first part is, I guess, Excalibur Sapphire is what we would. I was just kind of making it simple for the program, for the podcast, but we've got it segmented in where the first step that they're doing is they're like kind of building the brand and business in microcosm of what it would be at scale. And then the additional programs would be
smart. Yeah, that's really
offers.
Smart for sure. And they're getting success from one, they want to move into the next one, of course. That's cool.
We have to justify the investment, right?
Yeah, right. Well, they'll have those wins along the way, and they're like, well, if I did this, the biggest doubt is always, I'm sure the AI works, will I be able to make it work, and as they see that they can in fact do it,
I guess the trick is that it's like, for it to be an investment, and this is for some, I'm so deep into the product side of it that it's just like, I don't want people just taking the program and then me being like, well, yeah, it's a product and you bought it and it was an investment, because that's a sales tactic of what I need to say. But it's like, it should be that they do it and it worked, and they should have a business that makes money. And if they don't, how can I tell them to buy from me more? If I'm supposed to be saying, I'm here to make your business better, my job is to make sure that, like, if they do the work, and they are running the system, if most people aren't thinking in terms of those 5 pillars of like, well, there's a product, a marketing, a sales and operations, and a finance side to this. So like, if I'm giving them anything that's halfway decent in those areas, it should make a difference.
Right.
So that's kind of the simplified way.
That's amazing. All right. So then at some point you're having like a sales call with them, or what kind of, obviously some are saying yes. Are you also hearing a lot of, well, Jesse, you've given me a lot to think about, or is it, somewhere in between? What are you mostly hearing?
Our sales process is like a symphony. It's like, if they're financially qualified, they close. Like that's kind of what you want with an offer. Like, it's if that way you're only testing the pricing variable, which is hard enough, by the way. Like if you're only testing pricing and you're finding people that have the right problems that are built to spec for the offer, if you're then only trying to figure out like, I can't read this person's mind, was $2,000 really going to be their last dollar, or for the same, and also the transformation has to be consistent, and like eventually pricing has to be consistent. So Yeah, it's I guess the way that it works is we do something that has a radar diagram output. So part of our sales process is we talk to them about their business and have them rank parts of their business. And then that way, most coaches or consultants have to kick them in the bruised knee, as they say, like kick them in the shins, or is another way of saying it, to get them to feel the pain and be like, I gotta fix this. But like, if I'm not the one saying that, and I'm just saying, hey, we've been doing this here for a bit, do you feel like this is a fair representation of what's going on? Like what's going on in the business? Then they see the little visuals of there's a gap here. They're like, this is good over in this category of the business, but like this one's really, really underdeveloped. Then they have to be like, oh yeah. And then we can go, all right, well, how about this? We're gonna break. We'll come up with we're gonna come up with a tailored plan of how you can fix that. And all roads lead to Excalibur. At that point, right? So because it's a holistic program, we know we're there to be solving the whole thing anyway.
Well, for sure,
which is the truth anyway. Like you can't play whack-a-mole. So it's like like really, if they started just trying to solve marketing, but they're talking about meaningful moments and milestones, and it looks like a family jeweler, but they're trying to look like an e-com store, it's like, well, you kind of missed something. You know?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's the way that it's taken us a long time to dial that in, but like by doing the sales process the way that we do it, and it is asking the right questions, kind of creating this like holographic future state of what the business should be if they're doing everything right. That could scale and like is like what they would need to do, whether they were selling like Indian wedding jewelry or like they're trying to look like Bulgari. The same basic kind of fundamentals of what they'd be doing operationally are going to be the same thing. So it's cool. We basically get them to say how to close them. And then we have to tailor the presentation a bit to make it so like there's a few slides that have to be their slides, and then it starts to funnel them down to, well, this is where no matter what we're going over here. And that's and then that's basically how we've gotten it to be. That's like, okay, well, if the trick is that $2,000 hurts somebody more, hurts one customer more than $7,000 hurts another customer, but they both need the same transformation. So that's I don't know. Well, I guess this is almost a better thing for only us to be talking about, but like rather than it being on the podcast. But that's a sticking point, I think, that like a lot of entrepreneurs don't know.
Oh, I can imagine. That makes a lot of sense, man. So if you had like a leak in the bucket, where would you say it would be right now?
Leak in the bucket.
Like, so you've got a funnel built. It's all these pieces and parts. What does it feel like might not be working as well as it could?
I think I think we just got to get down the road. I think it's part of it is that it's just I would love to have a big I'd love to have a bigger staff. I'd love to be having well, like, I don't know if you've heard of what is happening with AI agents. I'd love for that technology to be available here. I think some of it is that it's like, since I'm the in-house subject matter expert for e-commerce jewelry, that's more of my domain, and like kind of being the one that's leading the charge on AI and stuff for us. It's the nuanced client questions that only I can answer, that I can't really expect anyone else to answer, that have to come to me. And it's good that they come to me, but it's also not good that they come to me.
For now it works, but not at scale. It would not.
That definitely, that
would break.
A leak in the bucket, when there's not much water going through the bucket, it's not so bad. But if a bunch of water ended up in that bucket, it might blow the bottom out of the bucket,
For sure.
I'd have to say that's the deal.
That's wild. My brain is buzzing with, they could do this, they could do that, for like attracting different types of, people who want to become a jeweler of some sort. Like, you could do.
Man.
as that process is like, I know my brain is going to do this. The next walk, it's going to be, thinking, would you mind if I like reach out and go, what if you did this? What if you did that? Would that be helpful,
Yeah,
or is
that's
that a
fine.
distraction? Okay.
No, that's cool. Yeah, that'd be helpful. Yeah, let me know. Likewise, let me know the same kind of thing if you're like the AI stuff across. Like when I say there's opportunity across other industries,
Yeah.
like I've got a lot developed.
Well,
Like,
my brain is already going, people who want to, like, it's incredible how many people are like, oh, I want to make a retreat center. I'm like, oh, and I've already thought, well, I should do a course someday. But I'm like, whoa, what if you had an AI in there that was kind of like your board of advisors, like a successful hospitality person, a successful, the real estate, there's all the different elements, an attorney, all these different things. I'm like, that would be really amazing.
it would be a matter of figuring out, it would be like the things that transfer would, one, be figuring out what is going to be kind of the niche, the transformation, the pricing, that kind of thing. Since it's more of a B2B type offer, it's not really like you're not selling consumer products. Right. So it's like with the brand type frameworks that I've got, that's more for consumer products that you have to like build perception in. With a B2B offering, it's niche, transformation, price, the mechanism that delivers the transformation, and then the way they access it. Right? That's like the solving order for a B2B offer. It would be a matter of that, figuring out like the value ladder of like what is the early thing that somebody gets, as opposed to like the big packages that you guys probably have put together. And then when you have those kind of things figured out, then you can make an AI CEO that would be like the Jarvis to your Tony Stark from Marvel.
Right. Yeah.
That would be like, that's like, once you start combining elements in an AI model is where the magic happens, because then it starts giving you really, really good advice. So it'd be like figuring out like, what is the value ladder of the retreat? What kind of offers can happen at the retreat? Since it's just filling an environment, you can do so many different types of things with it, with that space. And then it's a matter of like, well, who do you serve? Who's the customer?
Yeah.
What type of businesses get built out of it? Like, it's kind of like thinking outside the box. It's like, how could it be like an incubator, like a Y Combinator or a Techstars? I don't know if you've thought of that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've thought about having people here as like, here's your, like, here's the compound you come to. This is, an intensive, you come and you build your thing, or authors, you come and you write your book. I mean, there's a lot of, like, it could be the launch pad.
Yeah, like how do you come in for 90 days? Like, just thinking off the top of my head, it's like how do you come in for 90 days, and then because of like some of the resources that you adapt into that system, it's like, well, maybe there's a private equity firm, or like there's meetings that can be arranged, and there's ways to, obviously there's ways to do that. So like, you probably got a lot of cool opportunities over there.
Yeah, my brain does not stop with it. But I like yours, how it's like, it's got both sides going, and that's really cool. Jesse, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you. This is I think this is going to be an excellent episode for people. So
thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.